enabling improvement. So this is understanding the process of improving to improve the tooling that we use. First up, I'll introduce the team. We've got Dave Butts from GSE Group, Damion Haynes, lead hand from in the hangar, working base night shifts, and I'm Kevin Bryce, and I'm IC on the weekend shift in the hangar as well. So our group was tasked with finding an example of where we could reduce the workload. So this really came about because in our discussions we had, David's got a very heavy workload. Us two on the floor don't really understand what we do when we say we want a tool. We've got an idea, we would like a tool, and we want it now. Unfortunately, we created a lot of workload for Dave. So for us, Damion and myself, it was understanding what effect we have just because we would like something. So this has been a very good education for us from that point of view. So again, this is what Damion and I could do to reduce the workload, improve efficiency, and provide better time management for the work area that struggles in these aspects of their day-to-day running. So we're going to outline the process that is required to introduce a new tool into engineering with the aim of raising the awareness for engineers and therefore reducing the workload and increase the efficiency of the GSE and GSE groups. So I will hand it over to Damion at this point in time.
So this doesn't necessarily apply only to hangar. This is going to apply to the ramp, to probably even the airport. I think a lot of it follows a similar process. And often we're faced with no tooling, which is the worst scenario, or tooling that doesn't exactly work as advertised, or we think of something that's better. Not many of you know, maybe are not familiar with aquaplanes. Most of you are, but there's a few here that aren't. Fishing is pretty crucial to aquaplanes. And the scenario here, we've got a stick to catch a fish, probably not the best tool, but it's what's been provided. If we often come up with ideas, but we become frustrated because we ask for something, but don't realise what's needed in the background to make that happen. So we put forward an idea. That's not too fair. We think of something, oh, this might be a good improvement, we'd like to try this, we'd like to give it a go. What's involved, what has to happen in the background to enable that idea, for that idea to become something that's tangible, something that we can use. So this is more the journey that an idea takes to become a real item, something that we can actually use. So what do we need? This probably specifically applies to engineering, but I think it's probably across the board. If I hand you over to Dave, who's got a much better understanding of what goes on in the background.
Okay, so somebody like Damion might come to our group with an idea and says to us, how can you help? Got this great idea to catch a fish. So us as a GSE group would sort of explain to him that there's a process to follow. So the process has been developed. I know it's hard to read, sorry, and we have some handouts here if you guys want to see it a bit easier, but there's a process that's been evolved from the regulations, the aviation regulations for the FAA and CAA, and it's turned into our AOPs, which are our workplace operating procedures. And if I had it pointed up, it'd probably be a bit easier, but the top row up there is the guys in the workplace, so production can come from different areas of the business, can be components, airports, and that's where the idea is born. So everyone's got innovation ideas that they can use, and first person would come to work with a little bit. Sweet. Preparation, isn't it? So that's the first circle there. It's identifying the need for an OEM tool or an improvement. And first place for the guys to off the floor to go and see is Mark Campbell, John Sullivan, and the AGSE group in aircraft maintenance. So we're using that part of the business as an example, but it can be applied to a lot of other parts of the business. And that idea is then taken to Mark and John. They'll discuss the scope of it, what it's intended to do, what's called up to be used, if it is called up or not. And then we'll nut out a few of the ideas, come together as a team and work out a concept that's acceptable. So the idea is then, so we'll review that idea. Again, it's in combination with Mark and John's group. It comes down to our group, so we call the GSE group. And we review the idea that it's a purchase of a new tool, the design from ground up of a tool, modification to a tool. And we come to a sort of mutual decision, what the scope of that is. And leading on from that, after a few scratches of the heads and working through the processes, we'll then get on to the next part of the process, which is acceptance of that idea. And along with the acceptance, what we're looking to do is compliance. So we have to comply with the regulations for aviation, New Zealand statutory regulations. That can be as far as electrical safety, the Mining Act, hazardous areas. So we cover consider a lot of standards and regulations when we're assessing a tool for the job, along with damage to people, people safety, and the aircraft itself. So use of a tool, a freshly designed tool, a modification, will it impact on the aircraft safety? So after we've gone through that, we'll get to the acceptance stage, and working with the business, of course, we have to work out the cost of this. So at that stage, a CapEx may go in parallel to us doing the acceptance. Those two processes can happen together, and the business will decide whether it's worth spending the money on it. Okay, so we've decided we want this tool, and it comes back. It's been manufactured or purchased, and it will come back again to our group as part of that process. And we'll then go through and look at the induction side of things. Again, there's an OOP for that process. I won't bore you all with the details of that, but part of the induction process is we look at what maintenance requirements there are. So it can be straight maintenance procedures, it might be just replacing the filter. It can be calibration of tooling. So we'll then create the necessary data in the form of an approved drawing, GSE manual which contains calibration procedures, which we then have to build up and justify to the OEM requirements and make sure that it's all traceable to the known standards. So we're getting right through the process now, and of course once the tool arrives and we've conducted it through our system, that can take quite a bit of the time, depending on how complicated the tool is. Of course, you may or may not know, but we can induct things from a screwdriver right through to an engine test cell. So when we're designing engine test cells, there's a lot of work goes on. It can be over a year or 18 months. So, that new tool gets inducted into our tool store, and our guy's a lot friendlier now because he can, the engineer on the floor can go to the tool store and go to the slide and he can, hey, excuse me, Mr. Tool store person, can we please have a scoop that will catch our fish?
Good stuff.
I don't know if you other guys want to say anything more to that subject.
Now, I think the reason I enjoyed doing this piece is only because it gave me a better understanding of the amount of work that goes into the background to getting something that we can actually use, because there's an awful lot of frustration, specifically where I live on the hangar floor, that guys realise there's some difficulty, want an improvement, but they don't really fully appreciate the amount of work that has to go on in the background for that to actually happen. And it's not just the development of the manual to look after that tool and considering all the safety aspects, but it's also being able to justify the cost of purchasing that tool as well. And that there is an awful lot of work that goes on in the background that is just not appreciated or not fully understood.
So, Damion, did you share this with your team as well? Not as yet.
I've only finished it this week.
But are you planning on sharing this with the team so they have a better understanding?
Yeah, I do anyway. And from my point of view, the more work you put in at the beginning, the the more you think the idea through, the less work it possibly is for Dave and his group. If we can, rather than just saying, I want, actually put a bit of thought into how does it impact on our workspace, how does it impact the aeroplane, how does it impact staff, and try and give him the data to start with that might help him, or the person who has to come up with your scratch drawing into something that can actually be made. You know, give these individuals as much information as you possibly can, because it will make their life easier, it will make the process run a lot smoother.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've been very good. I've requested and had a lot of full brought in purchase. I've never known what the full process is behind it. Generally whenever we request a tool, it's like, well, we want to use it within the next couple of days, please.
It could take 18 months.
It is a very unrealistic time frame that can be put in. But again, on the floor, we don't really care about that because we just look at doing the job and how can we make it easier for ourselves. We've certainly spoken to the team that I'm with around the process and also sat back and thought about, do we actually really need it right now, or can we just request it to go through the process, understanding how long it actually takes.
Yeah, that comes down to planning a little bit, doesn't it? Forward planning.
Yeah, it does.
If you're able to.
It does, and also rather than, because there's a lot of us who have got good ideas out there, but rather than saying, right, this is what we're going to do and we want it now, actually stepping back and saying, rightio, well, let's go through the whole process, what can we do to speed it up and put a real time frame onto it.
And Dave, how do you think you might use what you've developed here for your customers going forward?
It's just the awareness, really. You mean as in the slideshow itself?
Yeah, for
or the
example,
concept?
part of your insights is that now you understand some of the intricacies of what has to happen. And it sounds like you didn't know that before the project. So is there an opportunity for you to recalibrate or reset expectations with your customers going forward? And is there anything you can do with what you've created here to help that?
So our group, we're working with it day to day. We're very familiar with the AOPs that need to be complied with. And through part of the discussions I had with these guys, they emphasised that they don't always read the AOPs. And I can understand that because there's a lot of information in them. And I think that's part of what, there's a lot of discussion we've had in the past, other than AOPs are so verbose that there's a whole page of instruction, then there's a flowchart, then there's another TSD attached. There's 4 or 5 pages of information to read and become familiar with as part of the process. The whole process is 4 or 5 of these AOPs. So for the guys off the floor, you can't reasonably expect them to read through all that and understand it. So we probably do need some sort of summary.
Yeah, because that was 5 minutes and I got a lot out of it.
Yeah, it's some way to distribute a summary, whether it's in a recurrent training course or just a 10-minute portion in a smoker in one day or something.
But just sit down with them when they come to you and say, here's what it will involve.
Yeah. So there's a lot of engineering decisions made at Mark and John's level before it can come to us, but then we work together as a team to get the end result.
I know I've certainly written a note because I'll get Kevin and Damion to come across to our lead hand meeting to explain the process because we had to find it from our last internal audit about inducting our tool.
Yes.
And the team hadn't followed the right process. So, a bit of understanding from you coming to our next leaders to express what you've learned over the last couple of months would be real time well spent. A question for you, Dave, how many requests do you get a month, a week?
Oh, we get half a dozen a day.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, so from
That's just not from a new tool or a modified tool,
Yeah.
but the general request for induction of tool and new tool to be purchased
Yeah.
across all the listeners.
So there's a huge learning for everybody in this room right now, the volume that you actually get.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's the same for Howard. So Howard, we have a guy in the hangar that actually tries to convert your scratch drawing into something that can be manufactured. He, on a weekly basis, is looking at 9 things a week, 9 items. Now they can vary in complexity from something very simple, like a modified screwdriver, to a tool to turn over a large heavy object. So it's quite a wide scope. And I think more ideas potentially could come off the floor if people weren't so frustrated that when they have an idea it's something that instantly happens.
Yeah.
Goes back to the crusade a little bit, continuous improvement,
Yeah.
those ideas, anyway, how that managed. Yeah, but we just get this simplified request, can we have a 40 million out of this? But part of creating that is all the other steps in behind that, is that approved data complies, and then in addition, the creation of a GSE manual, which is attached to that 40 million, which has all the detail on it, which I don't know how many engineers can find out where the manual is attached to that 40 million number.
So that was going to be my question. The title of your presentation, or the premise, was enabling improvement, and you've discussed your roles and how we could work better together. But what's an improvement that can be enabled out of your presentation?
Good question, Todd.
I had an outcome from this, jotted down, would be a presentation that's part of the current training. It could be titled Know Your Tool.
Which is better than don't be a tool.
We'll talk about that. Just the matter of clicking through set and finding that GSM maintenance plan, what data's behind the drawing. So,
And for me, Todd, it's more about trying to encourage people to actually put their ideas forward, not get frustrated that the ideas they put forward never seem to come to fruition. They don't give them often enough time, or they don't put enough data in there to start with, so we can get the thing off the ground.
That's what I was going to say, as being the A320 focal. I mean, I've had been sitting on 3 IRs nearly all year because the person who wrote, or the people who raised them, haven't put enough data in the IR to even understand what they want. I want a blanking kit, the air conditioning kit. I mean, the air conditioning heat exchangers, right? I mean, yeah, well, I've had to wait 6 months for a seat to be taken out of an aeroplane so I could measure up all the outfits. Well, on the day that they raised that IR, they could have got all the rain caps rather than the plastic bag and put them with the IR and says, we need these rain caps in a kit.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to get guys to think of, well, actually I do have a part to play in this other than just put my own grasp in. I could actually help the process move along smoothly if I understood how much work was needed in the background.
We had a CI improvement process in my last job, and essentially we went from concept, somebody put an idea in, it was discussed, and then at the end of the day he was going to be dealing with it, but then the idea went back to the individual to say, you need to be part of that shared process now in terms of getting through it. So there is a responsibility on you to find out some of those initial workings that would assist the end producer, because the guy's getting 9, and which one does he look at first? But if it's gone back to the guy that's put that improvement process initiative in, he's actually now buying into it, so he actually gets to learn the whole story, like you said. But he can also feedback that within the team as well. And actually, as people are putting that in, then everybody's sort of learning together as well. So we found that was quite responsible. So it was like, yeah, we need a simple one was we need new towel hooks in the gym. Yeah, well, what does the company need to look like? Where are you going to go buy it from? Boston, etc. You know, being part of it and delivering it, then it was something that they had ownership for. And when you look at your end reports and how you're adding value to the team, so there's some little things there that they can use as well.
Another realisation is often you hear the remark, what does he do? What's he do all day? And this is what the guys do in the background that we don't fully appreciate. What the support function actually does for the business.
And the money they bring into the business when they do tool loans. It's just taken off, isn't it, in the last few years?
Is that right?
I'm not even aware of the exact amount, but it's hundreds of thousands. So.
And I think it's important that everybody's aware of that function they play.
Yeah, you're right, because the Howard Askey landing gear lug tool, I think that brings in around $1 million a year, isn't it? So I think it's 3 sets off to get loaned out all through Europe. So that kind of improvement actually offsets some of our costs. It's fantastic that we were able to design that and then take that into the worldwide Airbus community to use.
Yeah, pretty cool. Okay, well, I think we'll leave it there unless we've got one more question from our guests. Anything you want to ask, Ian?
No,
Okay.
No,
any
but
response?
I guess Todd was talking about working better together, and I think I'm actually quite I think we're quite fortunate to go last because we might have something for you.
No.
That might help that communication.
Good
go
product
between
placement,
different-
Eve. Excellent. Well done.
Well, we gotta go.
That's right, just one little
No
thing.
pressure.
I think we should have had a credits page on the next slide because Damien's teenage daughter did all the artwork for us. So
Oh, really?
Very good.
Awesome. Oh, that is so cool.
Sorry,
You know, what's